Michael, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Absolutely.
You're one of the original investors in Joby. You're a board member. Really excited to learn from you and just kind of understand what's drawn you to Joby and why you decided to invest. So can you just kind of start off with your aha moment? Why Joby?
Yeah, so we did the SPAC back in 2020, and I was talking to a number of different people that I'm friends with about various companies that they were invested in, venture funds, for example, things of this nature. And one of my friends was already a longtime investor in Joby at the time. And I told him, sort of interestingly at the time, I really don't think this is going to be the type of company we're going to do. It's very challenging technology. There's a huge regulatory burden that has to be overcome. But I decided to dig into it anyway. And through that process, I got to know Paul Ciara, who's the chairman, obviously Joe Ben, who's the founder, and really started to understand some of the technology and the regulatory piece and some of the things that would enable this company to succeed on a longer term basis. One of the key elements of that analysis was Joby's largest outside investor at the time, and to this day, is Toyota, which I viewed as a very important positive signal. Once I decided to dig into Joby, I didn't just immediately assume that Joby was the industry leader. I've looked at a number of these types of companies, types of challenging technologies over the years. There's always going to be a number of different people that you speak with, subject matter experts, in this case, aerospace engineers, battery specialists, regulatory specialists, et cetera. And typically what I've found over the years looking at these things is it's very difficult to achieve any kind of consensus when you talk to all of these various quote unquote experts. And what was unique about this underwriting is that pretty much every single person I spoke with said the same thing. This company is far and away the leader in this technology, far and away the leader where they are on the regulatory path. The other thing that I'd say about these cutting edge technologies that I've seen over and over again is you're going to have these people that are true inventors, brilliant engineers, et cetera, that are drawn to these problems. And so when I spent time with Joe Ben, with John Wagner, who you spoke with, I think, who runs Powertrain, with Greg Bowles, who runs all the regulatory piece of the puzzle, the thing I found over and over again was there was a tremendous amount of substance.
Nice.
And again, this was also consistent with what I was hearing from external experts that had been around this industry for quite some time. I made the decision to make the investment, join the board, and this is a very interesting board. It's not a typical public company board by any means. For example, we have our original headquarters in California, but a few years ago, we decided to look throughout the rest of the US for a suitable place to put an additional scale production facility. We ended up choosing to go with Ohio, which frankly has been a fantastic decision. So I was very involved in that. I'm very involved in a lot of the things that we're working on here in Washington, both with elected officials as well as people in the administration. I've been very close with a number of the people in the current administration. And that's another thing that I'd say when you talk about the regulatory piece. With Secretary Duffy, with Brian Bedford, Chris Rocheleau at the FAA, we have the best FAA and the best DOT, I think, that you could ask for. And so we've made a number of recent announcements. TIA is just about to get started kicking off. We flew the first conforming aircraft very recently. We announced the airworthiness certificate. It's an industry first for the category. So it's a very exciting time. I invested in SpaceX about 10 years ago.
Nice.
And so I've been studying both SpaceX in the private market and Tesla in the public market ever since. And there's a few things that I think I've learned that I think apply to companies like Joby. Basically any company that's pursuing a very difficult technology problem, especially when there's a regulatory overlay. Number one, I believe first and foremost, you have to have an inventive technical founder. To me, it's like table stakes in a poker game. You have to have these things. And Joe Ben fits that description to a T. I've said many times, I used to say it to my dad all the time, I think this is what it would have been like to be friends with Thomas Edison. Like this is a human that just wakes up and his natural state is to be inventive. So let's say, for example, you have someone like John Wagner, who's arguably one of the top battery guys in the world, and you have someone like Gregor, who works for the company, who's one of the best aeronautical engineers in the world, and they're arguing about something. And the man at the top is not a technical person. That's going to be a challenging thing for him to navigate.
Sure.
And then let's talk about the vertically integrated piece. So first of all, if you look at SpaceX today, 10 years ago, it wasn't as obvious then as it is today. What happens when the company actually succeeds and it's vertically integrated? You end up with multiple companies in one. Tesla obviously is also the same scenario. That's what happens when things work well. But what happens as you're actually building the company and it's vertically integrated, especially when you have this regulatory piece like you have with Joby, when Joby needs to make design changes, everything is done in-house. And the thing that you're actually designing to, obviously, is an FAA conforming aircraft. So for example, if you're not vertically integrated and you make minor changes to, say, the airframe or the wing or the propulsion system or what have you, you've got to go back to your entire supply chain and have all sorts of changes made. And then they all have to be conforming the second time around.
Right.
So that iterative process, to me, is a killer. And again, when it works well, it ends up being a company that has multiple business lines. And again, I think this goes back to the nature of the founder. If the founder is a very technical leader, he's going to understand this intuitively. What's very exciting to me about this, if you look at Metcalfe's law or just general scaling laws, the price per unit comes down materially as you start to scale production. The other thing that starts to happen is as you reduce the cost of the asset, in this case the vehicle, the market actually expands.
I got to fly it with Buddy in the sim out on the West Coast. I was skeptical at first of how simple this could actually be. And to just be able to pull back on the stick, to have it climb, the aircraft is just handling it, your cruising, your SA, your situational awareness can stay outside looking around. I think there's going to be a lot of hardline pilots that are going to say, this is too easy. But for me, I think that's how it should be, because as a pilot, you want to be able to look outside and not be distracted with the 50 different gauges. So the Joby aircraft is going to change that, to make pilots more up and out and looking outside, which is what you should be doing.
I mean, and it's not just going to be the pilot. If you think about the passenger experience.
Well, I thought it was all about the pilot.
Well, that too. But I would encourage people to look at the video from this recent San Francisco flight and the flight path itself. So we go from Half Moon Bay over the Golden Gate to Oakland. The entire flight path was over water. As a passenger, you've got a beautiful view the whole ride. As we start to scale manufacturing and start to roll the service out in all sorts of parts of the country and the world, you take something that would be a grind, which is sitting in 2 hours of traffic, and turn it into something that's inspirational. That's one of the reasons, as an investor, I say we're not going to have a demand problem for a very long time, maybe ever, in my view. One of the things that I think about is we're going to continually improve the specification of this vehicle. And we're going to do two other very important things. One frame of how to think of an aircraft is you have the fuselage, the wing, the actual vehicle itself. You have the flight controls, and you have the powertrain. So right now, you see the fuselage here and the wing. The flight controls is a human pilot. It's a very sophisticated flight system, as I was saying, but it's a human pilot, and it's all lithium-ion batteries. Over time, that human pilot is going to be replaced by a fully autonomous system. Another thing that we did with the U.S. military last year is we flew a fully autonomous vehicle, not this vehicle, a separate aircraft, from the west coast of California to Hawaii, fully integrated into the ATC. The other thing some in the industry conflate is waypoint flying with autonomy. You know this as well as anybody. Waypoint flying is not autonomy. So this was a full autonomous system. We call it Superpilot. So at some point, this vehicle is going to be autonomous. And the powertrain, we believe at some point, there could be also a hybrid which is what we're flying with the military also right now. We're calling it the S4T. Our partner there is L3 Harris. That's essentially this vehicle with a gas turbine hybrid. We also flew about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, a hydrogen fuel cell hybrid. And what that does is extend the range by about 6 times. And so that's what I mean when I say when you deconstruct it, you've got airframes that can be this airframe or other airframes going forward. You've got this move towards autonomy on the controls. And you've got a variety of potential options on hybridizing the powertrain to extend range primarily.
So cool. So right now, there's pilots that are going to be flying this, obviously. That's the plan for now. So can we kind of ease the pilots' minds that are out there? They're going to be flying this for a while, and then there's still going to be a place for pilots in the Joby ecosystem and world, even once it goes autonomous.
Absolutely.
Right?
I believe that. And also, as a pilot, I think this is a pretty interesting job, because one of the challenges I would assume being an airline pilot is you've got to fly all over the country or all over the world, and that results in you having to spend the night in hotels and all these sorts of things. This will be a localized experience for a pilot.
That's awesome.
So you'll be flying X number of trips throughout the day in whatever town you live in, wherever we're operating, and then you go home at the end of the day.
Well, it's kind of a pride thing too, right? You get to fly this around your hometown,
yeah,
and provide that service to your hometown. That's kind of a cool thing, I think.
I think so.
Back to what I've seen with the regulatory environment. So I've seen it with the Trump administration. It looks like the governor's being taken off. A lot of progressive moves when it comes to the aerospace industry. The Secretary Duffy making a lot of progressive moves. Rook Isaacman, NASA administrator, we're going back to the moon. What do you think that is? I mean, this seems to me like this Goldilocks time where it's kind of the perfect thing with regulation and an innovative company like Joby. This might not last forever. So like, why do you think we're seeing this now, and what happens if we have a different administration that isn't as progressive?
Well, I don't want to think about the second part of your question yet. I'm trying to operate in the current environment we have, because the current environment's incredible.
It is.
It's what I would call an explosion of competence, and
I like that.
It's unbelievable what happens when you have competent people who truly care about the job they're doing and truly care about bringing these technologies to the American people. I have this interesting vantage point because I see it in the context of Joby, and it's across all the agencies in the government that I've been around. You talk about the White House, for sure. That's been there, very much front foot. The office of the VP, who was obviously a senator in Ohio at the time we did that deal, so we got very close with him and his staff. These people are very front foot. FAA and DOT, I mentioned, very front foot. Department of Energy, very front foot. And perhaps very importantly, given the current situation, the Department of War is very front foot. Technological innovation is being pursued and prioritized, and Joby's been working on a number of projects with various parts of the DOW.
And I see the regulatory nature now, the administration now is allowing those gloves to be taken off, and we're just focusing on what works, what makes the Department of War the most lethal. It's becoming a meritocracy as well, which is awesome. And that's something I felt at Joby, at the headquarters, it was about who's the most talented here, who can make this aircraft the best, and who's here to bring this vision to life. But it brings me to how the supply chain that I saw there was vertically integrated, right? So we went to the warehouse where everything was being made. I was watching people make the actual parts, winding some of the wiring that goes into the battery units themselves, talking with John Wagner. Right now, another part of the administration's focus is reindustrializing America, right?
Yeah.
And so Joby's doing that, from what I could see.
Yeah.
So how important do you think that is as Joby moves forward and more of these aircraft are being built?
We have to have the ability to build these technologies, these critical technologies here in the U.S. And we have our initial facilities in Northern California, which you visited. We also have 2 properties in Ohio, one that was part of the original deal that we did with the state 2 or 3 years ago. And we recently purchased about a 700,000 square foot facility. And by the end of this year, we should have north of 100 people working in these factories as we start to scale them up. The reason I believe that the reindustrialization is so important, and the reason Joby's very excited to be a part of that, is we have a tremendous amount of this technical talent right here in the U.S. If you look at Ohio, for example, the history of Ohio, our facility's in Dayton, which is where the Wright brothers are from.
It's cool.
And there was a tremendous number of these people that were trained in various levels of skills, but a lot of those factories were moving overseas. And so it's exciting to me to be a part of having these factories right here in the U.S., to build this with a localized workforce with the partnership of Toyota, which is an incredible scale manufacturing company, as you know.
So you said an explosion of competence. You said that about the current administration, which I think is spot on, but I see it at Joby too.
Yeah.
It's like this perfect combination of the regulatory environment, the desire to create this world-changing mode of transportation that I think is going to shift the way people think about flight. And they get to come in, it's like the democratization of the experience of being a pilot, where they're sitting in this thing, the windows on it are huge. You're getting to experience that kind of like, it's like a romantic type feel, right? Seeing the Golden Gate Bridge or wherever you're transiting from and getting that view. I mean, this is going to be an explosion of a love for aviation, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's what I've been excited to see. Joby has been doing, as I was saying, demonstration flights all across the world now for several years. And so people have been able to hear, not just take our word for it, not even just take NASA's word for it. NASA did a study in conjunction with us on the noise profile a few years ago, but to actually hear for themselves what this thing sounds like when it's spinning up and when it's taking off, and what it sounds like when it's overhead. In fact, there's a great shot of a bridge in Japan with, 15,000 people walking across it. And an S4, which is what we call the Joby vehicle, is coming in behind them overhead. And you watch the people, none of them turn their heads because they can't hear it coming. So they've been able to experience the noise profile.
Yeah.
They've been able to see a full transition. They've been able to see a human pilot doing these moves. It's not being flown from the ground or any sort of waypoint flying. The other thing about it is it's not just the decibel level.
Yeah.
But it's also the profile of the noise itself. It doesn't have the wop-wop of a helicopter or that sort of annoying buzzing sound of a drone.
Right.
It sounds like a white noise machine.
And I saw the shape of the blades too, how they taper and how that's been adjusted.
This is predominantly constructed with lightweight carbon fiber. All you need to land this vehicle, assuming you don't need to charge it, is a 75 by 75 foot flat surface. So that could be a parking lot, that could be a roof. And then the charging piece is required for certain hops, but for some hops, like very short hops, you can fly from A to B and B back to A and only charge at one of the stations.
Anything else that you want to share with everybody? I really appreciate this conversation.
No, I would just say 2026 is an exciting year. The groundswell of support we've had from all different parts of the government has been incredible. They're seeing the same thing that the public at large is seeing. This is an incredible technology that, very fortunately, because of the foresight of this administration, we're going to be flying in the U.S. this year. And this is a technology that the U.S. has to lead on. We've always, as a country, led in aviation. China is a formidable competitor. But we have to win as a country, as we have throughout history in aviation.
Exciting times, Michael. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And everybody out there, hope you enjoyed that conversation with Michael Thompson, one of the initial investors in Joby, board member. Lots of cool things happening with Joby. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.